All right, man, let's roll it out.
Let's roll it out, man. It's June 8th. The year it's 2023, folks. Welcome aboard. You listen to the Crushing Iron podcast, episode 692.
Yeah, it is.
Inching our way ever so closer to episode 1000.
And 700.
And 700. Yeah, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but hope you're all having a fantastic week. For those of you racing, I think you got Western Massachusetts, Eagleman, Des Moines, Grand Rapids, a lot of big races. Another
Escape
huge
from Alcatraz.
Yeah, that's right. It's a huge weekend of racing. Cape. I mean, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I would think that June and then maybe September, I think, are the two busiest months of the year when it comes to racing. But June is easily the busiest month.
In in the United States, probably. Yeah.
What's up?
In the United States, I bet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you in the U.S., the good old U.S. of A. But yeah, I think it is. It's just slams, sprints, Olympics, marathons, half marathons, bike races, swim races.
They're slamming, man. Are the fittest athletes on the planet racing?
Not this weekend.
Okay.
I don't think so. I need to look. I hope they have something to watch in the hotel room in Des Moines. I don't think so because I think the next one's in Montreal. But so they're not racing this weekend. But yeah, it is. It's full gas. It's all over the place, which is awesome. It keeps our heads on a swivel, keeps you guys engaged. It's just a really, really fun time of year with summer here. And plenty of opportunities to get outside. It's light when you wake up. It's light when you go to bed. No excuses to not get outside and get your training in. So, but yeah, hope you're having a great week. And if you're racing this weekend, best of luck to you. Reminder, if you're going to be in Des Moines and you see me around, say hi.
Say hello.
Say a little bit hello. And then ask me how Mike's doing. And I'll tell you he's doing great. But yeah, looking forward to getting there, cheering on the athletes and watching a great race unfold. The weather looks spectacular. But yeah, looking forward to that. And it's always fun to be around athletes and the race vibe and venue, especially somewhere new like that. So I will be giving some feedback from the spectator point of view, as well as some feedback from the athletes that raced it. But that's it. So looking forward to that. For those of you listening today, if it's your first time tuning in today, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. Tons of very valuable. So we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just kick back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes, looking at the very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite little amateurs trying to get back to the world championships and everyone in between from all over the globe. And we'll use that feedback loop we have with them and training peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion today. We also utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question. We'll let you right in. Awesome community, fantastic people, solid resource in a sport that's oftentimes way too complicated and way too confusing. And it is a great community and a great vibe with lots of information to help kickstart your journey and answer some of your questions. So be a participant. Don't be a lurker. Be a valuable contributor of our awesome community. And then we'll go in there about once a month and do a bit of a Q&A. But that's it. We don't do sponsors. We don't do ads, but we do have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah, so you'll be in Des Moines, and I was thinking that, it's cool to be on site and run into people who listen to the podcast and everything, so I'm sure you'll get a few people like that. And I was just thinking, you're probably like meeting Mike Riley on the course, and I'm a little bit like running into Bob Babbitt.
I can't believe you just compared me to Mike Riley.
A little intimidating.
Man,
a little famous.
There's nothing intimidating about Mike Riley.
I know. I couldn't think of anybody better. So
I mean, it's
I was trying to get Bob Babbitt in there because I like Bob.
I'm like the least intimidating person you're ever going to meet. But I can't believe you put the Mike Riley on me. And just I've never understood the fascination with the guy. I mean, I know he's done a great job and he was the voice of Iron Man, but I never really cared who called my name to the finish line. I was just so happy to finish. I couldn't care who voiced it. But I know that was a really big deal to you, so I don't want to hurt your feelings.
Maybe that's it.
You're Bob. You are more of a Bob Babbitt guy. I could totally see you like rolling up to these big races and your button down luau shirt and you're with your hair kind of like all crazied out, doing these interviews and asking, tough but provocative questions and doing your thing. Fucking Mike Riley. Just about me. Before we get into our cast today, a quick public service announcement. Make sure you wear your helmet where you are going when you are riding, especially at races. That I'm like one of those helmet guys. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine when you see athletes.
That is big for you, man.
I am. I'm a huge helmet guy because
reaffirm.
Just wear your helmet, especially if you're a parent, you're riding with your kids, you want them to wear their helmet, but you don't want to wear yours. Just wear your helmet, especially if you're going to the race and you got your backpack on, you got your $16,000 bike, you're rolling into transition, and you don't want to wear a helmet because you got to, because it interferes with your flat bill, right? You got to have your flat bill and your Oakleys that are like, 3 feet by 3 feet propped up so you don't have room for your helmet. And one, you can get DQ'd, but two, just be safe, right? It's just like cycling is no different than riding in a car. Most accidents happen close to home. Hayden went down hard yesterday, riding around the street, probably being a little bit irresponsible and reckless with his bike handling, but you know what? That's what kids do. They express themselves and they take risks, and that's something that we encourage. But he busted hard. Came home. I think like a guy doing landscaping like down the street saw him like limping his way home with his bike. Helped him, and he rung the doorbell. And yeah, he's busted. Legs pretty beat up, and then he hit his face hard, and then cracked his helmet.
Wow.
The proof's in the pudding. The helmet really, really saved him on that one. Then we, got back in the car, and as you expect, we put on our flashers, our emergency flashers. We put the cruise control on 95, and we headed straight to the bike shop to get a new helmet. It was a couple Band-Aids, but then it was
dirt on it.
Let's go get you a new helmet, man. So we walked right in the Trek store. We gave him the broken helmet, and they gave him a new helmet. No cost. Most companies are like that. If you bring in a crashed helmet that's cracked, because once you've cracked it good, it's no longer usable. They'll give you a free one. Such a great program and encourages safe, responsible bike riding. So again, wear your helmet. Helped out Hayden. It can help out you.
Yeah, and that's an interesting lesson, really. I mean, you got to go through it, right? Kids go through it. They get, like I said, he learned that early that a helmet does work. I never wore a helmet. And then you look around in Wisconsin, Illinois, they don't even wear helmets on motorcycles. It's kind of wild.
They don't. Yeah, same here.
Oh,
no helmet law. I'm like, what?
In Tennessee, I was. So I forgot about it, and I came back and I'm like, shit, this guy. Well, neither one of them. They're just hairs blowing. And I had a motorcycle. Let me tell you, one time I had a hat on, and I just thought it was a helmet for some reason. I jumped on my bike once, and I was riding down the street, and I'm like, damn, I feel good today. And then I realized it was because that wind does matter. It feels really good, but that's a tough. But the point I was going to make there was, you got to go through it, because I always hear it's like, I don't know if I'm going hard enough on the bike, or am I doing. I think you just got to kind of feel it and blow up. You got to kind of have that. I don't want to say bike accident like Hayden, but you got to kind of feel a little bit of pain or like push the edges and
listen, you got to take responsible risks. And as a parent, I'm a huge fan of logical consequences. A lot of times I just let him make a mistake. I mean, I think I've told us during the podcast, but like, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks ago, I think I told you this, we're heading back from somebody. We're walking back from somebody's house. He was riding his bike way up ahead, and he was just like swerving it on purpose, like trying to do little tricks around like the cracks in the pavement. And I looked over at Allie and I said, I hope he falls. And 3 seconds later, bites it in the grass. Didn't hurt him, but scared him. And obviously I didn't want him to get hurt, but I wanted him to learn a lesson that you can't just, be irresponsible and do things like that without knowing what you're doing, and that there is going to be a consequence if you do fall. So luckily he was on the sidewalks, he fell on the grass, and We walked up to him. He was kind of upset. And I was like, hey, he's like, yeah. He's like, so would you learn anything? Yeah. Probably shouldn't do that anymore. I'm like, well, just realize that if you do it, you're probably going to fall. Same thing goes to yesterday. Came in after he's done crying. I said, so, what were you doing? He's like, well, I was looking behind me because there was a car coming. And I just kind of lost control, of the bike. And then I went down. I said, well, we talked about this before. Your eyes take you where you're going, no matter what. Even if you think. So if you turn around and look, you might not think it, but your hands and your arms and your bar is going to go with you. So you always got to look up the road and look at where you're going. Don't look at your feet. Don't look at your wheel. Look where you're going. Don't look back. I was like, there you go. There's your lesson. But yeah, you know what? It happens to me. Like you said, I didn't wear a helmet ever when I was growing up either. So, but anyway, it's a little public service announcement. And good for him to learn as he's going on 7 here, because that's actually part of the topic for today is age and creativity. A few podcasts ago, I think maybe 6 weeks ago, we talked about being flexible, right? One of the big things that we try to impress upon our athletes and even impress upon you, the listener, is to be flexible, right? To be not to be lax, but to be able to problem solve, right? To be creative, to think through things, to own your own sessions, to own your own training, to own your own race. Even if you have a coach, and I think we even talked on that podcast. Giving out. Started to give out sessions, swim, bike, and run, where, all three. Like you have, in swimming, I've got workouts where it's like a bailout, right? Like I give 6 200s. And then once you feel form start to fade, let me know which one it fades on, and fades number 4. And then you kind of, don't downgrade, but you go to what I call a bailout set, which is like something shorter, like, maybe 10 100s, or do hundreds until you meet the main set. So you get to own your own session. You just don't mindlessly do 12 200s with bad form, even if after number 6, you're doing shitty form, right? There's no point, right? So you can bail out to a different session, still be productive, still get in a good workout, but own when you think in real time what you need. And then in cycling and running, the same thing, the object of the day might be to get in 18 to 30 minutes of threshold work. You can break it up however you want, right? Long first interval, short other ones, maybe go low, maybe go high. And I told you this, I think Tuesday, but I went back, I think a week ago, and looked through a few training blocks. And I think since I've given that out, right, between 18 to 24, 24 to 32, minute wise, I think I've had close to like 40 to 50 different breakdowns of that session. Each athlete owning it, taking it on, again, being creative, knowing what to do, listening to their body. Same thing with running. And that's one of those things that, again, we talk about this a lot, especially with racing, is that we've gotten so obsessed with exactness and rigidity that triathletes are famously uncreative and terrible at problem solving. Terrible. If the trainer doesn't work, you bail on the workout. If the clock on the wall or you forget your Garmin, you don't swim. You forget your iPod, you can't run, right? Your intervals, well, I did this interval, but, just so you know, I hit the lap button early and I missed this 1 minute here on the other interval, so I hope that's okay. Or my Garmin didn't log my 200 kick. Just make sure you got that in there, right? There's no flexibility, there's no creativity. And then on race day, when all of that is removed, right, and you're kind of like set free, it's like, I was giving this example to another coach the other day. I said, the way I see athletes now is that you that train so structured and so obsessed about every minute that they don't think outside the box. It's very much like raising an animal in a zoo. And then once they reach, full maturity, you put them out in the wild in Africa. Mm-hmm. They're toast. Total toast, right? They wouldn't last a minute because they've been babied. They've had everything fed to them. They haven't had to, think through things. It's just hanging out in a cage, right? Eating my, whatever animal it is. And then you go out in the real world and they got to take care of themselves. That's how a lot of athletes are now when it comes to training and racing. And in that conversation led me to a discussion with another athlete about creativity, and this is kind of where I really, really want to go today. And they sent me a link about George Land's creativity test, and I'll loop this into training and racing, and which again is something you and I are huge on, and challenging our athletes to think for themselves, to not be a slave to the workout, to the exactness, and understanding the flexibility and the overall picture, and then the lessons that can be taught in there. But so George Land, he invented a creativity test. He devised it for NASA to help select innovative engineers and scientists. So you're talking like the creme de la creme, right? Like, if engineers and scientists go work for NASA. And so what he did, but first is he tested again on a level of genius creativity on 1,600 children, ranging in the ages from 3 to 5. They were the program they enrolled was called like the Head Start program. Of those 3 to 5-year-olds, the test results came back that 98% of those 1,600 kids, 98% met that level of genius creativity. And so it went over so well, obviously, with kids, and then looking at trying to find it for adults when you're talking about engineers and scientists for NASA, he's like, well, maybe I should go back and start asking these same kids as they get older and retesting them. So he went back and he tested, again, the first result was 5-year-olds were 98%. The next were 10-year-olds. They had dropped all the way to 30%. 15-year-olds had dropped all the way down to 12%. Again, going from 98 to 12% in 10 years, losing that level and ability to be creative. Mm. Then the last one, this one speaks volumes. The same test was then given to 280,000 adults. Again, 5-year-olds, 98%. 280,000 adults took the same test. 2%. 2% had that genius level of creativity. And what he basically said, and he has a great TED talk, but he said, what we have concluded, Roland, is that non-creative behavior is learned. It's not that creative behavior is learned. It's that actually non-creative behavior is learned. And I just think that is a really great topic in terms of, again, when you talk about being flexible and being creative and being able to problem solve and troubleshoot, not just in racing, right? Because that's when the most problems come up, but in everyday life, and not needing to ask for permission or not needing to wonder, but being a thought-provoking, challenging, owning your own journey type of athlete and person. And I think we see this a ton as coaches, right? Because we work with triathletes that are very type A, but which is great. But some of the best athletes we work with, and it was funny because the timing of this whole conversation is that the one of the biggest gravel rides here in the U.S. was this last weekend in Emporia, Kansas. It used to be called Dirty Kansas, now it's called the Unbound race, and they had the 100-miler and the 200-miler in there. We had two athletes do the 100 and another one do the 200, and they sent me this picture at like 30 minutes in. There's 4 miles. There is like, not 4 miles, I think like 2 to 3 miles of straight mud. Everyone was walking their bike. And then after the race, so many people were complaining about, well, why didn't they reroute it? Why didn't they do this? I didn't think it was going to be, this hard. They could have just done this. And then when you talk about like the people who invented the race and all the people that finished, they were like, what they don't want to do is cater to people who can't think for themselves. They want the finish to be hard, want it to be easy. They want you to have to challenge yourself, right? I think we've all gotten so used to, riding our virtual courses or hopping on Swift or, doing very controlled things. And when it comes to like real life, right? Changing your tire, doing something like that, you can't do it. And so I think races like that are so great because it really forces you to think on your feet and to adapt and overcome, which are just great skills to have. But that's what kind of like, meshed it all together for me in terms of how to like really challenge athletes to be creative and to own things and to honestly really understand that it's a huge trait, right? It doesn't mean you're not following the plan. It means you're in fact owning your own plan, owning your own strategy, owning your own workout because you're the only person that can own your race day. So if you don't own anything before that, then you can't own race day either.
When you first told me about this, what I started thinking about was first of all, I had a little Zoom call with some athletes last night, and I try to do that once a week or every other week now, and I'm trying to get on that better because we have these conversations and we talk, and one of the things that came up last night was the integrity of the workout, and which we always talk about in general, and I'm just a huge proponent on it because to me it's about confidence too, like to be able to go off the rail a little bit and go where you want to go, and that's really been the centerpiece of how I train. And I'll have a plan in there, and we'll look at the plan, and it may be, big gear workout is targeted for hill climbing and getting stronger and everything like that. But I'll see that and I'll just go out and, like, I'm a big fan of just getting into hill repeats or something like that. Or I'll look and say, there's 6 sessions of 5-minute big gear. And I'll just go out and do hill repeats for 30, 40 minutes or something like that. And I think that the challenge becomes sometimes is when you're not, quote unquote, following the program, you're not sure if you're getting ready, but you got to be able to be, when I talk about confidence, it's sort of like an understanding of paying attention to knowing that you're doing something that's effective and believe in it. Because if you kind of deviate from the plan, I'm sure a lot of people are like this, right? Where I deviate from the plan here and there. And then it's like, if I get to the race and don't do well, then it's on me. And we've talked about it before, but I think, most people, I say most, but a lot of the plans that are out there are probably just fine. If you just follow them, and if you follow them to the letter and you're consistent, you're going to be able to finish an Ironman or half or something like that. But the point is being able to really go out and kind of work on the shit that you might not feel comfortable with, and explore a little bit and really understand your body and how you feel in certain situations. And I totally agree. I think that, I always say that almost like on a daily, it seems like, go out, and if you can't do the whole thing, just figure it out. Cause most of my workouts go like this, especially hard ones. I'll be like, man, I don't feel like this. Like, let's go out and see how it goes. So I'll go out and try, kind of warm up, get things going. And I'm like, I still don't feel like it. Well, I'm going to give it a shot. And then I give it a shot. And sometimes it works. And sometimes I'm like, I don't feel it. And I just try to back it down because, it's important to listen to that stuff too, right? Because it can go the other way. You might not feel good and just plow through something that you don't want, or you're not ready for, or you're going to dig a hole or something like that. And I know you see this probably as much as I do, but one of the things I see all the time in Training Peaks was, I went out, man, I didn't feel good at all, and I rode for, it just never seemed to get better. Then somehow at the hour mark on this bike, I started feeling good and pushing big watts. It's like that thing right there is so interesting to me, because the deeper you get in training, I feel like the longer it takes sometimes for the body to be like, all right, I'm ready to go now. And, it's the accumulated fatigue. It's a lot of extra training, whatever. I don't know what the scientific reason is for that, but I see it constantly. So that's good enough for me that it's a fact that the longer you get in training, the harder it is to warm up sometimes, or get loose, or get into your groove and things like that. And then it's so weird to be out on a run and feel like shit for 30 minutes or 40 minutes, and then all of a sudden start feeling great, because most of us don't have that mentality. Like if I didn't wake up and start feeling good in a baseball game or something, or any kind of sport, I'd be like, I just don't have it, and I kind of get in a bad mood or whatever. But sometimes that's, I think of that as sort of people that, you've all seen it, a basketball game or something where, the superstar is just ice cold in the first quarter or something. He just doesn't seem to have it. And then as the game goes on, they just get stronger and stronger, and they close it out. That's what you want. And how do you got to be able to go through it to get there. And on the way, I think that takes creativity to figure out what you're going to do and how you're going to, loosen up, because you don't have a choice at that point. And if you're not used to trying it or figuring it out in training, like you said, once you get out in the wild, you might be clueless. You might not have the ability at that time.
And I think one of the things that most athletes miss out on, and therefore coaches miss out on, is the learning experience. Because there's not a coach that's being real honest about it on this planet that can tell you exactly how you're going to feel on a day. You just can't do it. You cannot predict how an athlete is exactly going to feel that day. Neither can the athlete. You might assume you're going to wake up and feel incredible, right? And like for me, I'll just use myself an example. Like I have trained pretty hard the last 2 or 3 days. I played like tennis 3 times in like 24 hours. It's super hot outside. And if you had asked me, how are you going to feel today when I woke up knowing I was going to take an easy day today to let it soak in, I'd be like, well, I probably won't sleep very well because I've been too much intensity. I got done playing tennis at 7. It was like 90 degrees outside. I'm probably not going to sleep very well. My HRV is going to be low. My recovery is going to be low. So I'm definitely going to take like an easier day. So I woke up this morning, best sleep I've had in like 2 weeks, highest recovery, highest HRV. So can't predict it, right? And so, but one of the beauties of being flexible is one, letting the athlete, right, learn and navigate. And we said this a lot when we talk about, why we don't give exact numbers in paces in swim, bike, and run. Like if I told you, Mike, all right, Mike, I'm going to give you, 10 2-minute intervals a day on your bike, or, 3 5-minute intervals on your run. I don't want you to do them all exactly at, 200 watts for your bike, and then all at 8-minute pace for your run. Well, what if going out super, especially right now, it's getting hotter outside, where you really don't want to overdo it the first one, you might not have any idea how you're going to feel, and you might not make it. You just might not make the interval, right? But you might have made 8:15 and gained some confidence, but you don't make the first one, so you immediately think, I can't do this. This workout's toast. Hit the lap button, go to cool down. I called it a day. Well, what you could have done, right? And this is why we do it the way we do it. Is all right, Mike, I'm going to give you, a watt range of 190 to 210. So 20 watt range, on your workout. First one, you're like, yeah, my legs are up, and you're at 190, 191, 119. You're like, finally. There are my legs, right? Maybe you've got a lot of, accumulated fatigue, and it takes like you said, your body a lot longer to wake up. Oh, now I can raise it, right? 200, 205, 210. Maybe last year you're like, man, I'm going to just crank it out and see what I got. And you nail it. It gives the athlete so much confidence, right? To learn that and to go through it on their own, right? Because you talk about listening to your body, pacing correctly, right? Finishing strong, all confidence boosters versus the version before, which was, I can't make it. I didn't make the version, so I called it a day. Guess who learned nothing? The athlete, and who else? The coach learned zero. He learned zero. Nothing. Mm-hmm. Same thing goes for the run. Same thing goes for a swim. But what you can learn by giving creativity or allowing for creativity and flexibility, say, all right, Mike, what I really want you to do is just get in 20 minutes of tempo or threshold work today. And you might be in like week 2 or week 3 of a training block, and you might be assuming that they're going to be really accumulated fatigue, or it might be week 1 and you're assuming they'll be real fresh, right? Again, you can do your best to predict and your best to plan, but ultimately you really don't know until you know, and the athlete is the only one that knows. And again, what else is like that? Race day. You assume you're going to feel great. You assume the taper was on point. You assume because it's race day, your body's going to be in peak condition, and no matter what's going to wake up ready to take on the world. But that might not be true. So you've got to troubleshoot. You've got to figure it out. And so Mike might rip off he get in, he might go, all right, 2 minutes in, he might be like, oh, I feel solid today. Let me extend it to 4. I still feel good. Let me see if I can get 8. Still feel good. Let me see if I can go 15. Gets 15. You know what? Let's just fucking rip it. Knocks out a 20-minute threshold interval, maybe in like a heavy fatigue state. We both learned something, right? The coach learns, man, like it took him a little bit to warm up, but then he nailed it. So we are right on track. And now I know how to program his intervals after this, or I can give him more flexibility to go longer. He gained confidence, right? Owning his own workout, very proud, because yes, he was given the structure, he was given the outline, the kind of the skeleton, session, if you will, the framework, but then he made it his. Whether athletes want to admit it or not, they take the most pride in what they own. right? Because then they feel an enormous sense of success. And they did it, and they learned it. They learned it they read the signals that were, yeah, I can push forward, and they chose to. They chose to. Not they chose to because coach said, but they chose to. Again, just like race day. Or Mike starts off with a 2 minute or 20 minutes, and he's like, I'm gonna do 2 minutes. Like, yeah, that didn't feel very good. Let me just stop it at 2, easy for a little bit, and let me try again. Oh, that felt a little bit better. Maybe I'll go 4. And that may feel better, for, what? My legs feel like shit. I just do not have it today. I'm going to call it a day. So I got in 10 minutes. That's it. That's all I have for today. Fantastic. We both learned something. You're a lot more tired than you thought, instead of being irresponsible and saying, man, but coach said I got to get in 20, so I better get in 20. So we went from walking up and looking down into the hole we created, right? Recognizing we've dug ourselves into a hole, or we're a little bit too fatigued. We've gone from that, and then the one that keeps on going, right? That lacks creativity, that lacks the ability to problem solve, that lacks the ability to take ownership over their training, and to know that it's okay to bail, or know it's okay to walk away, or know it's okay to stop. You didn't just peer over the edge. You went and rented a freaking Bobcat, rolled that thing down, and dug a bigger hole. But yeah, coach, I made you proud. I got it done. What? But what did we learn? Nothing. Now it's going to take us 2 or 3 days to think about it, because I'll be able to see in the data and how you the next day that was a bad decision. So there's so many things you can learn about yourself and teach yourself, but it's this obsessed rigidity to follow instructions perfectly and to do this, and the risk takers are, that's why, you and I both as coaches, we encourage athletes to think for themselves, to kind of not to take risks, but to go beyond sometimes and to figure it out on their own, because we've become so programmed, right, to you have to follow instructions, you have to fall in line, this session has to be done exactly, because we even see this, right, as coaches, athletes, hey, just so you know, I had to cut the warm up from 15 minutes down to 10. I hope that didn't really hurt the integrity of the workout. It meant nothing. It literally meant nothing. Right. But we think, right, we've been trained and programmed to think if we don't follow things exactly, then it's bad. Right. Then it's bad. But that's not the case. Right. No. You need to be, as we say, I won't say it because we've been shunned for having flexible in the fuck around. That's what you need to be. And you have to do that with your training and own it, because again, on race day, more people DNF because they can't problem solve, right, in training or in racing. Not because they don't have the fitness, but because mentally, and we've become mentally stunted, I think, to think for ourselves, right? You just assume it's going to go this way. You assume there's going to be this. You assume there's going to be, race support at this thing, and if there's not, then you're like, oh, and then you know who you blame it on? The organizers, the volunteers, right? That's getting paid nothing to be there. This wasn't in the athlete guide. They changed the race course at the last minute. I didn't know. Keep up to date, right? We have these things thought in our mind, but you have to own it. Like some of the best races done in all sports have been where people have just found a way. The circumstances were not perfect, right? There have been gold medals and world championships and again, world records shattered by people who had no business doing it on that day, if you looked at it on paper, but they found a way and troubleshooted, right? The games, the events, the races that go down in history are the ones where they had a flat tire, or they didn't feel well, or they have a loss of a loved one, or whatever it is. And they just, what if everybody only got out of bed knowing the day was going to be perfect? You would miss out on the best days, right? Because the mistakes, right, are what make you who you are, if you decide to figure it out, right? And so when it comes to, again, training and racing, you have to own that. And you have to be flexible. You have to, again, challenge yourself. And that's why we do this a lot, is to challenge your athletes to be creative. And even if a lot of times you don't want to be creative, because it takes extra, right? It's very easy to fall in line. It's very easy to follow instructions, right? Because then if something goes wrong, you can just blame somebody else. I was just following the instructions, right? And So a lot of times athletes will push back and like, I just don't want to think about it. Well, what happens on race day when you're at mile 95 with a bike and you're tired and you're grumpy and you're exhausted and something bad's happened? Are you just going to say, you know what? I just don't want to think about how to change my tire. I just don't want to think about how to get my bike from the last 10 miles stuck in one gear. I just want to think about how to manage my nutrition now because I've lost a bottle. No, you got to choose to figure it out. And so again, in training, there's so many opportunities each day to step aside, right, from the rigidity and the obsessed nature of exact intervals and lactate and percentage of intensity, and just do your best to stick with the integrity of it, because that'll get you, 99.9% of the way. And that last, point one, is negligible. But the best part about it is if you're flexible and you own your own journey, you're probably going to stick in it longer because it feels better because you owned it. And it's just there's a lot to be said for applying that to training and racing.
Yeah, and I mean, going back to the beginning, kind of with the kid genius thing, and it's about figuring out solutions maybe when you don't feel like they're there. So to me, that's what creativity is. And I spent a long time doing like video work professionally and everything, and I talked about at the news station. Most of the time, they came back and I'd have to do a promo, and I wouldn't have, the perfect video or whatever. So I kind of spent a lifetime really trying to make shit work. And I think there's something to that. And I was thinking also about a kid, man, like the kid mentality about how when I was younger, we'd get like 12 guys together and split up in teams of 2 and play basketball. We'd do like a round robin tournament. So we play every other team and we just spend all day out there in the sun. And how, to me, I'm going to say this is relative. Obviously kids have more energy and shit like that. But the mental process of it is kind of like, man, okay, you guys are up. And we'd be laying around watching another game and get up being, I remember being super tired and super sore as a kid and just kind of plowing through it. We had one day, this guy came over and he goes, "Hey, get up. We're going on a bike hike." And I'm like, "What?" And I said, What is that?" And he said, we're going to go ride the bike. And then, there's pit stops and people, we were like 12 or something. It was a 60-mile bike ride. And I think I used my mom's 3-speed with the, kid seat on the back or something like that. And I remember that day and how it was raining and how tough it was, just that sort of thing we feel in triathlon a lot. And that's what I was actually thinking about at Wisconsin when I was 5 miles into my 7-hour ride in the rain last year. And I started thinking about shit like that because it's really about how are you going to pull this together. And I feel like that's so much of racing is things don't go well all the time and you're hurting and you're pain and you're suffering out there. And it's just a matter of kind of getting through that moment and getting through the next minute. And it's like one more mile kind of philosophy. But those, I talked about on the run too with the, I went into this 300 step walk or 300 run, 100 walk thing. I was just trying to figure something out because it was so painful, man. But I wasn't, there was never a doubt in my mind. It was just a matter of how was I going to do it? And it is crazy how you have to get in. You can't just be like, I give up, that doesn't work. It's kind of like, it's sort of this building this muscle, I think. And I think it's interesting to call it a creative muscle in triathlon because there are millions of ways to figure it out. I mean, one of the ways could be just taking 10 minutes on the course and, standing there next to the aid station and getting your bearings about you, fueling up, kind of getting your body just a little bit of, because I always think it's amazing to me how in-race recovery can happen too. And I think I talked about how sometimes you don't feel good on workouts, but sometimes you don't feel good in a race. And if you can kind of just slow down, maybe recompose yourself and kind of just get out of that mindset of, man, this is going to be impossible, and let your body be like, all right, now thanks for the little break. Maybe you went out too hard. Maybe something happened that just threw your hormones off or your chemistry or whatever. And you can kind of calibrate that on the fly, that's a huge talent. It's a huge skill. I mean, I'm not Andrew Huberman. I don't understand how biology works or any of that shit, but I just know that we can do those types of things rather than, sort of throw in the towel way ahead of what, because racing is the same to me as training, is that you can figure it out and actually have a good training session after you didn't think you were going to have one. But it can go the other way too, but I'm just saying there's ways to kind of get through it. And it's just sort of like, I used to mountain bike too. And I never forget this guy, he just said, he goes, just don't think, just keep spinning. And that's sort of a philosophy that I've always kept with cycling too. It's like, it hurts, but if I just focus on the spin and staying right in the moment and my breath, breathing out, I think a lot of times we get, tense because we don't think we can do it, or we start doubting ourselves or whatever, and we get shallow breath, and all of a sudden we're not, getting enough oxygen because we're not breathing out a lot. And I always talk about the exhale too. It's like one of those things that if I'm struggling on a run, I just will, for like a half mile, just like, like you do in the swim, in the beginning of the swim, where you just like scream exhale just to get that sort of muscle chain working to breathe out so you can breathe in. I'll do that on the run, and just like, it's kind of annoying, I'm sure, to some people, but it's just the way I figure things out, and the way I just think that that's a strong way to sort of level out your anxious brain and just relax a little bit while you're running.
There's so much fun and excitement and lack of expectation and enjoyment from doing things like the first time without any knowledge, right? Figuring it out. And what happens now is we have so much access to everything, right? Virtual courses and pre-rides and people that have done it, or you've done it. And, you go on a 30-mile ride and there's 1,942 Strava segments, right? So everything is calculated, everything is compared, everything is analyzed to its death, to the death of enjoyment, to the death of just going out to ride a bike, right? Without your Garmin, right? All these things are, some of the most fun athletes have, and this is one of the key reasons we do with this thing on our team called December Rules. And we include and encourage, because we don't structure the month unless they have like an odd race coming up, but we don't structure the month. With December Rules, we have specific rules there to follow very loosely, right? Very flexibly. And a few of them are, it's stepping out of your comfort zone, right? Or doing things, if your friend asks you to ride a century and you've barely trained, you can do it. If your friend asks you to run, 4 miles every 4 hours for 72 hours, you can do it, right? All these things to give flexibility and to just have experiences and to learn, learn what you like, learn what you don't like. I just have like a small fine print. I'm like, just don't be the originator of these ideas, but you can definitely, tack on and go do these things and just be flexible, right? And you can ride long, you can run long, and you can, most people don't, but you can swim long. It's like you do these things that are fun. And you said like, that's the great thing about, about being a kid is in sometimes like, Hannah comes like, hey, play this game, and this. I'm like, what? Yeah. That doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah.
Because he hit it for like 3 hours. And, so what am I supposed to do as a parent? Oh, well, you know what? You guys didn't do that correctly. How the game is supposed to be played. Is it? No.
Yeah.
Who cares what it's called? Who cares how it went, right? You just figured it out and you made it work. You were just creative. You were a problem solver. Like, it's a skill that has to be encouraged and allowed and not condensed and not shut down, right? Because again, like we've become so worried about everything and it being correct, right? Or not being incorrect that we just don't. And that's a form of it's a form of suffering, right? To feel like you can't be yourself and to say what you want to say and to do things that because it's not going to fall in line, or I hope this literally never had an experience that obviously that I didn't think was going to hurt the athlete. And perfect example is got an athlete who only has like, I think, 100-mile century ride coming up, and then like a marathon late in the year, coming off like coming off a 70.3, coming off a 150-mile gravel ride. So we're in sweet shape. Like, we've got plenty of endurance. And this very, very, very analytical athlete. So this is very typical of most triathletes. And he said, "Hey man, there's my wife's gone this weekend, so I'm at the house alone." So typical triathlete fashion. It's not like, yeah, I'm just gonna sit in my PJs and stick my hand in my pants and watch Netflix. He was like, "So there's a local sprint going on, and I think I'm gonna jump in. How do you feel like that fits in the training?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wait a minute. We don't have a race for eons, and it's a sprint. What do you? But this, I'm telling you right now, so many athletes worry so much that that's not going to affect anything. 99% of the people that listen to this, you think way too specific when it comes to what needs to be done in training, right? Way too specific. And I just said, I don't even know why you needed to ask me this. Yes, go do it. So this was on Monday, and I looked in Training Peaks. I was looking through his workouts, and I didn't see the event on there. And so he's talking about his workout again, a couple paragraphs about a swim. And I just said, quit being so willy-nilly about your sprint and sign up already. And so finally I go in this morning, check, and yep, signed up. I was like, thank you. Go do it. Rip it. Have fun. Just, again, have fun. Like, there's so much to learn and to love about being creative and choosing to have fun on a day, right? And that's a lot of times, like, and again, some athletes hate this, but a lot of times I'll just say, go out on your bike for, 2 to 4 hours, enjoy yourself. I need structure. Where should my heart rate be? What power should I hold? That's only sustainable for a very short period of time. Very short. And again, I think we talked about, because 90% of the time burnout is self-inflicted. You chose to do it. You didn't have to choose to do it. You didn't have to choose to overtrain. You didn't have to choose to do too many races at once. You didn't have to choose to do 16 Ironmans in 1 year, right? You didn't have to choose to do 20 hours a week. You didn't have to choose to have such insane expectations and hate training. You could choose to have fun. No, but where's the fun in that? Well, exactly, right? It's like, then that's how you end up where you end up. But going out on mindless rides with no direction and no map and no idea where to go, that's fun, right? That's what gets people to do it more often, is to explore, right? To do things, again, like we did as kids. You have no idea where you ended up or how you got there because you didn't care, right? You weren't like, let me check my ways real quick to make sure we're on the right map and we're getting there in the exact time. Now, look at it, road trips, there's plenty of place for using ways and getting there in the least amount of time possible. But when it comes to exploring and doing things that are fun, sometimes just get on your bike and not have a plan. Not have any plan. Like that, those are things, same with running, same with swimming. How do you feel? What, I want to go harder today. I feel really good. And to communicate that or to cut, and again, and not the extending time, but the restricting side. Today I didn't have it. Today I didn't feel good. That's good, right? We progress today. And I think that's something every athlete needs to hear. If you don't feel good for whatever reason, right? Stress is stress. Life stress is the same as training stress, if not, not harder. But if you had, let's say an interval, you had 5 times 5 at threshold on the bike, and you went out and you didn't feel good, your legs were crappy, you didn't feel right, your heart rate's high, but you suffered through it. The win is negligible, if there even is one, because you probably dug a bigger hole. The win was actually doing less, was cutting it short, or was bailing on it totally. That's the good job, right? Not adhering to the structure, right? And again, that's for athletes who get, a 7 to 10, maybe 14-day block at one time from a coach who knows them and knows their life and knows their training. That goes for that. Not to, and then it's a whole different animal when you go online and purchase a 30-week training plan or read a book that's from two people you never met before, because this is what they did and this is what it takes to be this. That just it's you're there's so much room, and people do things mindlessly. Like so many athletes we work with now that have followed books or plans are like, yeah, well, I've always told you this. And I'm like, or especially when it comes to swimming, right? Like we'll have Nashville camp coming up and we hit the pool deck. The first 30 minutes, right? I talk about specifics with swimming, a technique, and, what have you been taught? And then I'll ask, well, why do you believe that? Well, because, somebody told me that. Well, I know, but why is that? Why do you feel like that helps you? Well, I don't know. I just do what I just did it because they told me to. And then as you like peel back the layers and you ask questions, you're like, oh yeah, well that doesn't really make any sense. I guess that's not really how it should be. I'm like, yeah, that's not how it should be. Like, but you have to think extra, right? You have to ask 1, 2, 3. You can't ever ask too many questions to get the right answer. And then to believe it, because then if you believe it, then you can be unwavering in it, right? But you have to ask questions to get there and be creative, right? If every coach on the planet only followed one philosophy and it was all the same, the turnout would be very, 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 very different. And that's not good for anybody. That's why that's why every coach should challenge themselves to be creative in making changes or trying things out, right? And we say this, a ton is like, 80% of what we do is based on, research and literature. 10% is based on, our experience as coaches with athletes and what we've seen as work, and then the other 10%, we just make shit up. We do. Mm-hmm. Just make it up, figure it out, be creative, because that's how you find things that really, 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 really work. I mean, some days I'll just sit in front of my laptop and pull out like, a blank Training Peaks format and just play. What if I could do this? What if I could do this? And I don't like this. What if I could do this? What if I could do this? Or I could, we just go back to, the one you worked on in 2012. No, I want to do something different. I want to find creative, because there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. There's always has to be a better way, right? And if you gotten to the point to where it has to be only done this way, then you're wrong about basically everything. There's always has to be a better way. You should always try to keep an open mind. You should always try to be learning. You should always try to be creative. You should always be willing to challenge yourself. And guess who's not perfect? Your coach. Guess what's not perfect? Your training plan. All things have margin for error and should be encouraged that there are margins for error, because those margins are where you get to take out your pen and start drawing. I know you called for 20 today, but I felt good at 16. Or I know you wanted 4 intervals today, but I felt solid and ripped out at 20. Perfect, right? There's no coach, hopefully, in the family that's like, well, you know what, Jimmy, you really did mess up your chronic training load score here in Training Peaks. I'm afraid that we have now entered the detraining phase, and we are going to need to, erase the next few days and get right back on our calculated track. I'm a hard pass on that. No thanks. Like you're ripping the fun and experience and growth of an athlete, and that's like, because if you go back to like coaching and communication and what you want to instill in the athlete, when they do a great job and they race well, you tell them they did a great job. You don't say, yeah, I killed it. You're welcome. That's not how it works. You say you did a great job because they did it. They did the training. They did it. And what makes them even more proud is when they know they had guidance, but ultimately they have to do it on their own. They have to. You do it by yourself on race day. You just do. Yes, isn't it nice to have a guide on the way there and have a coach looking over your shoulder and making sure things are okay and guiding you in the right direction and giving you the sessions to do. Yeah, but you also should have a coach that encourages you to own it, because it just makes it that much more fun. Like, again, going back to like the kid example, if Hayden gets like a box of Legos, he'll make something, follow the instructions and build it the first time. He's pretty happy, but he's so much happier and proud when he just takes a pile of Legos and makes something up because it's unique, right? It's his. It only came from his mind. It only came from his imagination. It only came about because he wanted to do. That can be the same for everything, right? Is to create things. You can create your day and create your sessions and create your life by not falling in line and being scared and walking away and quitting too early or only scribbling in the lines. It was like, be creative, be flexible and own it, because then you're going to love it more. Because I know you and I both fall in this category, but if I had listened to, and you'd listened to all the people who told me that, I was an idiot for trying to do what we're doing now, or that's not going to last, or this won't be good. I'm like, well, then, look what would have happened. Nothing.
Yeah.
And there's just, it's again, like being creative is I've always found that people who rip on people that are creative or rip on people that are doing things different really do that because they're afraid to be different or do things different or be creative themselves, because it's scary, right? That seems a little too scary for me. And then so you'll riff on it. But what you should be doing is like, yeah, well, maybe I should riff on it a little bit. Maybe I should try something a little bit different. There's a lot of fun in that.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting topic to think about, especially as, like we have AI now, and really what that is just some kind of accumulation of the overall viewpoint of everything on the web. So it becomes this kind of homogenous approach, and as we go forward, it kind of gives like, more and more people depend on that type of thing. That means just we're going to be more and more similar, and the value will be in the uniqueness. So I think back to like when we used to ride the trace, we'd go out with maybe a 4 or 5 hour goal in mind, but we really kind of make it up as we went, and we'd feel out the day. And I remember one time we went out, we're just going to go ride for 4 hours or whatever, and we got to mile 14 and we're like, let's just repeat this 3 mile hill section for like the rest of the ride. And we just would go back and forth, up and down in arrow, or up in arrow, and then ride down and repeat it. And those types of things, it's just kind of rolling with the flow, but it's out there every time you ride. It's out there every time you run,
I think that really messed up our race season. I mean, if you go back and look at that one day, if we just had to hit that exact workout with the exact training stress score the way we planned, we probably could have crushed our races.
Yeah, that's funny you say that, because I think about this often. There's 2 things I could have for my bike training right now. One would be the lab, and that's 1 mile circle. And 2 would be that 3 mile section of hills.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just do that all summer.
Yeah, all summer.
Be fine. It's just, yeah. I mean,
hey, we'll get to do it in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we will. I don't know if I'll be
But
ready.
it's like it's one of those things that, and the same thing goes for coaching. It's why it's so fun. It's like, if you don't make stuff, like if you're not making stuff up, you can't make stuff up to find success and pass on to your athletes. And that hill section, like we're doing that one day at camp. That's all we're doing. That section. That was it 5 miles, 4 or 5 mile section.
Yeah, it might be 4.
Yeah, 4 miles. Yeah, I want to oversell here. It's like 25 miles. No, it is. It's like, I think it's a 4 mile section of just 3 long rollers that are not rollers, hills, but they're perfect because you can stay in arrow for all of them. It's hard. It definitely ain't easy, but you can. So you can get great big gear work and working on your climbing, and the roads are perfect and the traffic's minimal. It's like, it is ideal. Remember what I found? Like, we said we would ride 4, or the day that the first year I was coaching. I know we told a story a couple of times, but we're out there, and you got a little bit of a later start than some of us, and you thought you were riding like 40 that day, 40 or 50, maybe it's 50 miles that day.
Mm-hmm.
We're coming back from our first, whatever, and like, yeah, it's like, nah, you're going out for another one. We're doing over 100 today, and we went out. You're not prepared. Right? Not just not mentally prepared, but probably also not fueling prepared. Right?
Oh, yeah.
This is like 11 years ago. And I mean, none of us were. I mean, it was like sun shining, there's like 6 or 7. I was like, yeah, fuck it. Let's just do another one. It's like I think we were training for Louisville, right? Or maybe you were in Wisconsin, or I can't remember what year it was. Maybe it was Louisville, but it was hot. And we're like, hey, let's just go back and then we'll do all the hardest parts of the trace again, right? Because once you get past that, it's not easy, but it's rolling. So go back out, and then we get to like the farthest end to turn back again. And it's just like a scene from Twister. Massive storm, hail, wind, and we're just flying on the way back. We did not pull over. No rest stops, no bathrooms, no shelter. We were just, let's get home. Right. And It was just that's the most fun I've ever had riding a bike, I think.
It was pretty close. Yeah. That we pace line for like 35 miles or so, I feel like.
Yeah.
Or
and because they're trying to get back as quickly as possible in the pouring rain and storms. And it was just like, let's just get back. Let's just figure it out. And that's all it was. Again, those are the memories, right? It's not this. Yeah, well, one of my better days was this day back in 2016. I was the training stress score requirement was 212, and I nailed it. Perfect execution. 212 miles in my basement, alone, with no one around. Nailed it.
Nailed it.
You don't remember any of that. You remember all the hard stuff, right? And the fun stuff, which again is all, things you can control. Keep it hard, keep it fun.
Yeah. Well, let's control the ending of this thing.
Let's control the ending of it before we go into OT. As always, we love you. We hope we encouraged your creative, imaginative minds today. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you want to sponsor Mike and his move, you can go to the online store and purchase some gear, so he has less gear to take to the new place. It's also a great way to support the podcast, along with going to iTunes, leaving us a great review. It's a great way for us to grow the community and keep on spreading the word. You can also click on the coaches tab and find the coaches right for you if you're looking for some more assistance and how to keep you in a straight line, but let you be the driver, to stay in the driver's seat and be creative. We've got, I think most coaches have some availability. You can find the coaches right for you and reach out to them. And as always, if you need anything from Mike, he is available, CrushingIron@gmail.com. Or if you need anything from me, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, buddy. Have a great day. Have a creative day.
You as well.